This is a man's world, and marketing is a byproduct of its environment. Worldwide, women drive 70 to 80% of all consumer purchasing. But brands are still cashing in by masculizing products. Body wash, cigarettes, alcohol, even salad dressing are all steeped in hypermasculine mythology. But is it doing more harm than good? This month on TLDR, we're diving headfirst into what masculinity means in the marketing space today, and how social market research can help identify and narrow audiences the right way. Gillette's viral The Best a Man Can Get campaign is a great place to start.
Yeah, so we actually just saw a clip of Gillette's The Best Men Can Get, and obviously when we saw that initially go up in the digital space, saw both a lot of negativity and a lot of positivity. There was a lot of the ends of the spectrum and not a lot of kind of neutral reactions. Here we have even a couple of quotes from some celebrities. Piers Morgan saying that this actually doesn't represent masculinity, let boys be boys, let men be men. Chrissy Teigen and Bernice King coming out and saying that this is actually more than just being about masculinity. It's really about being pro-human and really sharing and showing that appreciation and respect for your peers and counterparts. So I just kind of love to hear you guys' reactions about this commercial and whether it kind of changed your perceptions about Gillette as a company or didn't change them very much.
I think it was very cool to see a brand, this time with the Me Too movement, everything going on, to actually tackle that and not pretend, even though they're in this very masculine space of men's shaving, not pretend that conversation isn't happening.
Yeah.
Because we see all the time in our testing here at Dose that, when we're trying to answer a question for a brand and there's this other conversation happening either with their brand or that space, that noise of that conversation just takes everything over and you can't learn what you're trying to learn.
Yeah.
So the fact that Gillette was able to do that was very, very cool to me.
And I mean, for me as a consumer, I feel like I would be more willing to buy into their message now because it's not so hyper masculine and they're culturally aware of what's happening. Like, welcome to the 21st century. People are talking, people are different. And so I think it's an important conversation for brands to be having and for brands to evolve.
Yeah, and I feel like they have such a huge presence that it's really up to them to kind of shape the way that we buy products and how we perceive what it is to be masculine or what it is to feel like a person in general. And so I feel like, again, this was a big risk. Maybe not the biggest risk they took, but again, with the comments that they got, we've got a long way before people can start to really just appreciate and accept how people want to be compared to what society tells us to.
They definitely saw a huge surge too of their social mentions and traffic.
Yeah.
That was incredible to see. I mean, I think it goes to that old school argument of, is all publicity good publicity?
Yeah.
I would argue in this case, yes. I got people talking about Gillette, got people talking about the brands they use and why they use them. I mean, Antonio, do you use Gillette?
I do use Gillette, yes, to shave my face. So I feel like, again, it hasn't even changed. I'm not gonna not use it because of a commercial. I feel like, again, if they make a good product, even if their commercial is considered controversial, in a good way, I feel like it shouldn't dictate how I use my razor,
That's super interesting that you mentioned the product though, and kind of that you just asked Antonio about it because I actually use Gillette razors as well. I think it's a solid product. I do like the things that P&G in the past has stood for, both this, I know that
To see a brand,
supported the pitch like a girl, throw like a girl, run like a girl type things. And so it definitely comes back to the product in a lot of cases, but what the overarching company believes in.
And I think that the more brands kind of accept and help become a part of this conversation, the more inclusive our society is going to be in general, because you can't live in a box. You have to kind of see what other people are talking about and other things that are going on.
Well, it was in the space, didn't Dollar Shave Club, they did a similar kind of thing, but they actually were including gender non-conforming people, transgender people, kind of very 2019, tapping into the fact that people aren't fitting into these two boxes anymore. We need to acknowledge that.
For sure. And I mean, I personally actually stopped buying women's razors a while back and started going to Dollar Shave Club because I liked that their advertising wasn't gendered. Mm-hmm. It's just good design, good branding, good marketing.
It's so interesting because in our recent branded work for a CPG brand, we found this sort of toxic masculinity come up so much. It was definitely one of the loudest side conversations that we caught. And you know, a lot of the loud sentiment was like this whole real men don't shave, or like the whole sissification of the American male. That was a favorite one of mine that came up in our testing. And I think it really just got to the heart of that this topic is so deeply personal and emotional for not just men, but also women. And it's like, you know, if you're a brand trying to navigate into this space, you really have to do it correctly, or at least prepare for the comment blowback you'll probably receive.
Yeah, I mean, and even as I kind of looked through that CPG brand's own pages, when they were dealing with stuff on their organic pages, they were constantly having to go back and either explain why they were doing things or helping to educate, which I thought was a really good standpoint. But exactly to your point, in the comment section, things can kind of go down a rabbit hole and kind of continue to perpetuate themselves in a lot of different ways. And it's interesting to see the spots where you continue to see it happening, or when people kind of say up and say like, actually, I believe in this other thing, or I disagree with you. And so definitely as we take a look at sentiment, it's all about finding that balance and finding where the true conversations lie versus where people are just kind of spitting off things that they feel or they believe. Mm-hmm. I think as we think about why we test on social and why we test in all of these different spaces using all the assets we do, it really is to help disassociate from some of that bias that comes potentially in focus groups when you are surrounded by a group of men and one man is louder than the rest and you maybe don't feel comfortable saying your own opinion or kind of adding a different perspective to that group. And so I think that one of the things that we made sure to create a space where a lot of people felt comfortable sharing their different opinions, positive and negative, or masculine or feminine, kind of having that spread of a lot of different types of comments back as opposed to someone dominating that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's interesting, even on our social organic platforms here at Dose, we see, you know, people are spouting off on this not just to be kind of like rah-rah man about it, but they're also, you know, kind of looking to the future, embracing, I think, other types of masculinity, which is interesting. We just featured this Chicago-based fashion label. They're called Princess Awesome, and they're releasing a gender stereotype kind of busting line they're calling Boy Wonder. And it includes kind of these like, you know, boy clothes that have like flamingos and rainbows and just like different kind of stuff that usually is reserved for only girls. And I was a little nervous seeing it go on our platform on our page, but you know, it drove, I think, like 6 times higher reach than our average post. And it was almost entirely positive. People saying like, you know, it's time we kind of move on, time that we embrace kind of a broader idea of masculinity for future generations.
Well, I mean, if a little boy wants to have long hair or play around with nail polish or whatever, you know, if he's into My Little Pony, he shouldn't feel bad about that. Just like a little girl should be able to play with Legos and trucks and get in the dirt if she wants to. And I think that these are important things that brands can start to be aware of as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think we've seen some of those brand transitions happening a bit. I know that, for example, Axe has done a lot of initiatives where a lot of their older commercials were women chasing down men with like jungle music in the background. And in a lot of ways, they kind of have begun to embrace more of a diverse opinion of what masculinity is and who the people are that should be using their products.
I think they are still doing these kind of ads because it's so saturated and punchy. And I feel like that's like a good way to make sales quickly, or like they'll see a surge in, you know, their revenue because, again, like it pokes fun at the masculinity, but it's also like, it's almost like hyper, if that makes any sense. Like it's like really intense. And with, you know, the Axe ad and the Dollar Shave Club ad, it's like very chilled out and kind of like authentic and open. And so when you have these commercials that are a lot more relaxed, it's like, people, I feel, again, will have a more relaxed response to it rather than, you know, one that's like intense with colors and again, like with this hyper masculine visuals.
Well, I think it's interesting too when you put it all into the context of the history of kind of masculinity in marketing. Like, I did my research and I think we have to blame the cigarette companies kind of like first and foremost. Like if you go back to like 1955, that's when Marlboro, which initially their brand was targeted toward female smokers, and then they came out with the Marlboro Man, the guy smoking in the country, wherever he is. And their cigarette sales jumped over 3,000% in just 1 year. So then you had P&G came forward with Mr. Clean, home cleaner a couple years later. And if you just follow it down the row, we had Brawny Man. Old Spice in 2010 was really an early adapter to these kind of messages. And then through to 2018 last year, we had country icon Reba McEntire was KFC's first female Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, so I think that's all the time we have for this month's TLDR. Check back with us next month and let us know if you have any social marketing challenges that you want us to tackle.